Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome, and welcome back to my series. I am doing the series right now, Awakened by Design, Unveiling My Journey with Human Design and My Innate Intelligence, walking you through my journey through human design and really discovering and uncovering so much of my innate intelligence and how that's affecting me and my business and my wellness, life, relationships, all the things. And so today I wanted to dive into my profile lines. And as I mentioned in the first episode, if you haven't listened to the first episode in this series, you don't necessarily have to listen to that one to know or to understand what I'm talking about in this one. But I will say that I did preface the whole series in that episode, why I'm doing it and kind of how to use it. So I would encourage you, you can listen to this one, but I would encourage you to go back and listen to that one as well, because it'll make more sense and kind of put all the pieces together. But I am just walking through my, not the whole chart, because that would take ages, but walking through some of the most important pieces of my chart in these first few episodes of the series. So the first episode I did my type and strategy and authority and how I use that. And today I wanted to talk about my profile lines. So if you're looking at your chart, which I know you have because I asked you to get it last time, and you will see the two numbers on your chart and it'll have kind of a description. And if you use the site that I recommended, the myhumandesign.com, then you'll see she has a little description there of what your profile lines are. So for me, I am a 3-5. And she calls it the great experimenter. Now, if you look in the original text of the human design book, it's called the martyr heretic, which I don't know. I feel like neither one of those words have a really great name or great connotation. I mean, so it's a little odd, but once you really learn what it means, then you're like, okay, it makes sense. So with 3-5, this, I have to say that the shadows of this profile have been the bane of my existence for so long. This is another one of those, like I talked the last episode about me kind of learning about my strategy. I know that one was kind of a tougher one for me to grasp. This is another one. I don't want to say it's tougher to grasp because I fully understand it. It's not even about understanding it. It's just more for me. I think it was the acceptance part and just coming to terms with, like, okay, this is who I am. This is how I'm designed. This is how I'm meant to be here and do things. And because, well, let me explain why. So as a 3-5, I'm here as, like it said, the great experimenter or the martyr heretic or hero. If you like the word hero for heretic, it's interchangeable there. But for me, learning about this, I'm like, I don't want to be a 3-5. I don't want to do things. I don't want to learn by experimenting. This is kind of the work I had to get through. So as a 3-5, I am here to be independent and magnetic. And the independent piece totally resonates. And if you know me at all, then you're like, well, yeah, that explains a lot. And the sense of a 3-5 they have is about themselves is I'll figure it out. Right? I'll figure it out. I'll do the work to figure it out. And that's always been my motto in life. I remember doing a talk at a women's business organization years ago before I had done my human design. And that was like, we ended up basically titling my talk, that is, I'll figure it out. Because that was what she would talk about. How did you do this and this? And how did you figure this? And my answer was always, I'll just figure it out. My thought was, I'll just figure it out. And that's just how I've always operated. So as a 3-5 in the whole, I'll figure it out mentality, that's the hero, the heretic. And basically a 3-5 wants to be the hero to figure it out for other people. And that's what we're here to do. Now, this can backfire in some ways, and I'll kind of talk through the shadows in a second. But one of the aspects of this that can turn into kind of the downfall is the overpressure or basically to overpressure themselves to be the hero for everybody. And while, yes, we're here to be the hero, we can't be the hero for everybody. So there's a really important part for boundaries here, and to understand that you can't help everyone, and you can only do as much as you can, right? I think the other piece is accepting the responsibility that I am here to figure it out on my own so that I can really revolutionize the experience of other people. And I think when I was first reading this, I have to say, when I was first learning about my profile, everything about this made sense to me. Everything about none of it was like, oh, that doesn't really, I don't know. None of it. All of it made sense. All of it made 100% perfect sense. And I think for me, it was confirmation. And I think that happens a lot with your human design chart when you're looking at your own body graph. A lot of it is confirmation. Like we all have that innate knowing of ourselves. I believe that we all know. It's just a lot of it has been hidden and shoved down from, conditioning, society, beliefs, opinions of other people, like projections, all of that is maybe can hide it or kind of shove it down in a place that we've forgotten about it, but it's always there. And so I think for me, it wasn't like learning something new. It was like, okay, like I've always known this. And it was more now I'm being challenged to accept it. Because I think when I first was learning about it, I'm like, well, this is kind of a lot of responsibility. Like, I don't know if I want this pressure. Like, here I am supposed to be the hero and, figure things out on my own so I can help everybody else. And not only that, but as the three line is the martyr. And this is the part of the part of the great experimenter that I mentioned, because we're here to live life as this series of trial and errors. And that was the piece for me too, where I'm like, but I don't want to do that. Like, who wants to fail a gazillion times before they figure things out? Like, no, I don't want to do that. This can lead to a lot of shadowy pieces that come out. So it can lead to feeling insecure for just not knowing the answers, because we're here to figure it out, not just know it, but figure it out. For trying to like go with the flow with what everybody else is doing instead of really calling out what we see as the problem or what's not working. We get really up in arms about people doing everything the same way. And I think this lends so much to what I do and why I got into the world of functional nutrition, because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because I wanted to mention this later, but it seems like the proper time to bring it up. When I started out, I was doing just kind of basic nutrition coaching in my studio, right? Just kind of like, let's give people basic accountability and support and, see how I can help them. And so for the most part, people are coming to me, and I'll probably use this story again, but for the most part, people are coming to me because, they wanted to quote unquote lose weight or tone up or, drop some pounds or whatever. And that was really the extent of it. Like it was kind of this really surface level, like superficial kind of reason. And this no judgment. I don't say that word with judgment, but it was just very like a surface level thing, right? There weren't deeper things that people were coming to me with. But when I started working with these women, I did realize that they had deeper issues at hand, right? Like the whole like, oh, I can't lose weight, or I've had this, stubborn 20 pounds over. This was all because of hormonal issues and thyroid issues and gut issues and inflammation. And there's much deeper things at play. Here I was going into this with this kind of with the same mindset people are coming to me. It's very surface level. Like there was conversations about calories and macros, and not that there's anything necessarily, inherently wrong with that, but it was a much deeper conversation. And the weight conversation is always a much deeper conversation. And so for me, here's what I was getting caught up in the flow of, like, again, doing what everybody else is doing. Let's just do meal plans and talk about macros rather than calling out the real problem. And at some point, this hit me, and I didn't know I was leaning into my profile lens, my human design at the time, because I wasn't in human design then. But at some point, it hit me that I'm really not calling out the real problem. I'm really kind of taking this superficial approach to things, and I'm not calling out the real problem. And so this is a huge piece for a 3-5, and a huge sticking point. Like things get sticky when we get in this rut of just doing what everybody else is doing. And that's where what I was saying before I went into that story. A 3-5 can get really frustrated with that in society. And it's funny because I just saw a human design gal that I follow on Instagram. She's a projector, but she's also her profile line's a 3-5. And she was talking about this. She's like, I'm so sick of the just like I forgot the word she used, homogenistic. I don't even know if that's a word, but basically everybody doing the same thing. Like they're just following the trends, doing the same thing everybody else is doing on social media. Like she's like, it's annoying. And that's kind of the mindset of a 3-5, where it's like, okay, let's call out the problem and let's figure out a new way of solving the problem. And that's what I'm here to do as a 3-5. Similar to something I mentioned in the last episode about me as a manifesting generator, how we're kind of here to like figure out a new way of doing things. As a 3-5, this like really reinforces that aspect of a Manny Gym, because I'm really here. I am in my genius as a 3-5 when I am paving my own path, when I can really embrace my like hot mess energy, where it's like I've messed up a million times, but I've got the resiliency to keep going until I figure it out, because I'm figuring it out for everybody else, because that's why I'm doing it, to revolutionize the experience of everybody else. This is this is a huge piece, because the independence piece and like paving my own path and creating my own way of doing things and all, like that's a huge piece. And I have found myself getting caught up sometimes where I start to question probably my like sacral nudges, or what's coming in for my intuition, and kind of these nudges I'm getting, these maybe divine nudges I'm getting from God. But I think I question those, and then I get to the point where I'm like, oh well, I need to hire somebody to help me out. And so I've found that while I've worked with some great coaches, I've also worked with some coaches that weren't that great and that weren't that helpful, and were really teaching things from that perspective I was talking about before. Is like, this is what worked for me, so it works for everybody. And that's not what I'm here to do as a 3-5. I'm not here to do things the way everybody else is doing it. And so I've spent God knows how much money on programs and courses that taught things like this. Like they're teaching the same way of doing, this is how you do this and that. This is how you do things in your business, because it worked for them. And they're teaching that one specific way for everybody else because that's what worked for them. And I am not meant to do that. I am not, honestly, I don't think anybody's meant to do that, but especially me as a 3-5, I'm not meant to do that at all. And so where I've thrived the most is when I've hired coaches and, done programs where it's not a one size fits all thing. It's someone who can lead a program where you can discover your own way of doing things. And yeah, there's principles that can carry over to everybody, but it's all about finding like your unique way of doing it. That's where I've thrived the most. And that's where I've been the most successful. And that's helped me paved my own path from those experiences. My process as a 3-5 can be chaotic and messy and full of what other people would see as mistakes or even taboo. I mean, I think there's, for 3-5, if you look at the Human Design book, he uses the word anarchist a lot for a 3-5. And I've never really seen myself as an anarchist. There are, the way that we do things can be taboo just because it's kind of going against the grain and it's not doing what everybody else is doing, and can be seen as maybe rebellious. And because of that, a 3-5 is like the biggest attractor of projections of people. People can feel compelled to really project their own feelings and insecurities on a 3-5. And this was another piece for me that, oh my gosh, I didn't even really realize how much this had affected me. I think about, man, so many times in my life where I had friends kind of betray me and kind of snub me or turn their back on me or whatever for this reason, like just because they're projecting things on me. And I think that's because a 3-5 does things in a different way. They see things in a different way. They can be seen as, the anarchist, rebellious one. And it may not even be like they're the rule breaker per se. Like I've always been one who's followed the rules, but I also think that was to my detriment in a lot of ways, because that's really not how I'm here to operate. And I think it kept me playing small for a long time. And I'm not saying I don't ever like to talk about regrets or, mistakes or whatever, because I think they're all lessons. It's all just a lesson. It's a lesson. It's an opportunity to learn. But I can see so many times in my life where I was really holding myself back from doing my life's work, like my soul's purpose, and stepping into that because I was playing small, because I was just going along with the flow and following the rules and doing what everybody else was doing. And that's really not how I'm here to do things. And I think sometimes as a 3-5, this pops up for me so much. And so often 3-5s can get labeled as a failure, seen as a failure from all their many mistakes. But and I think that's why we get projected on so much. People, I think that as a 3-5, people never actually truly see you. They project their own like fears, insecurities, emotions, whatever on a 3-5. Sometimes they're shamed for their mistakes, or they're just seen as like, oh, they really don't know what they're doing. Like they just keep doing all this stuff that's not working, right? They see that. There's a lot of depth and wisdom to a 3-5 that's the other piece. People just don't never truly see the whole of a 3-5. And I think this is a piece that I'm maybe just now really stepping into and sometimes still question when I'm doing things, because I do think a 3-5 is full of wisdom, and it's because of the experience, because they're the trial and error types. They are the life experimenter. Because of all the trial and error, they are a wealth of experience and wisdom, like in awareness, because they're curious and they're not afraid to do things that fail, and they're not afraid to fail, and they're not afraid to get tackled on the field of life and get back up and keep going to the end zone. Like that's who we're meant to be and how we're meant to live out this life. And I think that that's really what brings so much wisdom and experience to a 3-5, that there's so much depth to a 3-5, and people can see them as quote unquote too much. Right. And the reason I say it, I feel like I'm still kind of working through this piece, and I find myself questioning things sometimes. When I'm putting content out, I have a lot to say and I have a lot of depth to pull out. And I think sometimes when I'm writing content, I'm like, is this too much? Like, am I saying too much? Am I going too deep? Like, am I being too, because sometimes I feel like I do, and I do go deep, but I honestly, I cannot help myself. And I have to go back to this piece and realizing that that's what I'm here to do, right? Like I've had all of this, I'm not old, and I've had a lot of life experience and a lot of different things in a lot of different areas. And I experienced, lots of things in life. And so I have a lot of wisdom and experience to share from that. And I'm able to go deeper than a lot of other people can just from that experience. And so, yeah, I think a 3-5, people just kind of see it, it's like an iceberg. Like they just kind of see the tip. And that's why I think sometimes those projections happen. People project onto them because they don't see the depth of them and where the depth is coming from. It's coming from that wisdom from the experience. And as a 3-5, because we live this series of trial and error, I read this in a one of the places when I was studying human design. I read this and I thought, this is such a good, it was so good, because I've actually had people tell me that before. It's like, oh, I feel like you've lived multiple different lives already, like in this one life, because I've done so many different things. And that's why. So a 3-5, like they live multiple lifetimes in one life because they try things and they do things and they live by this trial and error. And so it does seem like they've lived, they have all these different phases of life because they try all these things, and that's how they get the wisdom and the experience that they are here to transmit to the rest of society and the collective. And therein lies where, when I was first learning about this, I was like, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want the responsibility of having to teach from all my mistakes. I don't want to have to make all the mistakes. I don't want to have to do the trial and error thing. Like I just wanted, and I don't know, it was a hard one for me to really step into. I think one of the biggest things that helped me really own this part of me, first of all, there's definitely a shift in looking at your quote unquote mistakes. There's the first thing. It's a huge reframe what quote unquote mistakes are and how to use them, what they're for. But the other thing in the book, in the human design book, like the guy who created human design, Ra, he said in the book that the hopes and dreams of humanity rest on the 5th line. And because the 5 lines are here to be like the heretic, the hero, right? We're here to teach and from our experiences. And we're here to do it without even questioning like what it takes to teach those lessons to everybody. And we're the only ones brave enough to do the thing, basically, is what he's saying. I think this is huge. And for me, I think that was a big revelation that I had reading this, because especially as a 3-5 with the 3 lines. So let me explain this too. And you can go back and listen to the episodes I mentioned before that explain more about the profiles. But when you have 2 numbers in your profile, the first line is your conscious line. So that's like who you see yourself as, and you kind of express yourself. The 5th line is an unconscious line. So it's kind of the potential, right? And it's kind of more of a ingrained part of you and more of something that sometimes you have to step into because it's not a conscious thing. So as a 3-5 really works in your favor because the 5 is the heretic. We know on a subconscious level, because it's an unconscious thing, we're here to be the hero and to, like I mentioned a few times before, revolutionize the experience of other people. And we're here to lead people. We have this leadership, this innate leadership role to lead people through things. What's cool about that is with the 3 line as the martyr part or the trial and error piece, while some people who have a different unconscious line could really have more of a struggle with the trial and error part. But because we have the 5th line and we know we're here to be the hero, we own it. And I think that we have a better perspective about it and we have a better sense of humor about it. We have a sort of like cheerful optimism in this like continuous loop of continuous mistakes that we're here to make. And I mean, yeah, it can be a challenge, but I remember when I was getting divorced so many years ago, my best friend came in town to, to kind of be with me and talk things. And she was like, talking about things. And she's like, "You're so calm. Like, how are you so calm? And all of this is like, what are you like?" And I didn't realize it at the time, but I think about that sometimes. And I think because again, on this subconscious level, I knew I was here to just figure it out and that it was going to work out because I'm here to, like, I made the mistakes. I get the experiences and I learned, and then I'm going to move on and it's going to be better. The next step along the way is going to be better. And so I think that as a 3-5, we have that ability to have that really cheerful optimism within this constant, continuous loop of mistakes that we make, knowing that that's how we're here to do things. And we can see mistakes from a totally different lens, which is so huge. I mean, I think we can all benefit from seeing our mistakes from a different lens because regardless of what your profile is, your mistakes are never really mistakes, right? They're lessons for learning, they're opportunities for learning and to lead you to the next thing. But when as a 3-5, when this is kind of your life's, I don't want to say purpose, your purpose isn't to make mistakes, but your kind of your life's path, I guess, this is what's happening along the path, you can kind of resist the urge to avoid the experiments that are really so vital for your design and vital for your 5 line to teach people. And here's the thing that really gets me, that really got me, and I still have to catch myself because the real shadow of a 3 line is basically avoiding disappointment because we're afraid to do the trial and error things. We don't want to be disappointed. I mean, who wants to feel disappointment? Nobody wants to feel disappointment. And for me, oh my gosh, especially over the past, the post-COVID era, like after the pandemic and getting hit so hard with the pandemic, I've working through like PTSD on things and thinking about worst case scenarios with a lot of things. And I don't think I ever really did that much before, thinking of worst case scenarios. But when the worst case scenario happens to you, then it's like the only thing that you can see, right? And so I think there's been so many times, especially post pandemic, that I've wanted to make decisions and do certain things in my business and go certain directions with things. And I've really held back and I've really held myself back from doing them or even just like doing it full out because of the fear of disappointment. Like, well, I don't want it to turn out like it did that other time. I don't want to feel a disappointment. I felt enough disappointment over the past few years. I don't want to, and this is a real thing. But I think when you have that, and you can really dial into that unconscious profile line, which whatever your profile is, your unconscious line can be such a gift, really tuning into that, dialing into that, because that really helps kind of amplify your conscious line and help you through that piece. But for me, it was like really dialing into my 5 line and realizing like, okay, I'm here as, the heretic, the hero, as the leader to teach people a new way of doing things and to teach people from my experience and from my trial and errors. So if I'm avoiding the trial and error, I'm literally avoiding my purpose, right? I'm avoiding really stepping into that. I have to own how I'm meant to do things here, how I'm here to do things, and own how I'm here to contribute to the collective, which is through my series of trial and errors. And it's a hard thing sometimes. I'm not going to lie. It's a hard thing to step into sometimes. And sometimes it does get exhausting. It can really take a toll on your energy and your mental health and all those things. But tuning back into that, well, because I think the other thing I want to say on that, I think another big shadow that can show up as a 3-5 is feeling like you're not enough or unworthy. And that's been a huge piece, like not valuable, that's a huge piece too that I've worked through. I mean, really, honestly, I would say, especially over the past 6 months, is that piece comes up a lot because because I think what it is, you get so stuck on this trial and error thing, and you get these loops where it feels like everything is an error. Like it's not, and it's like you keep having to do that cycle over and over again, and you keep trying things and it doesn't work how you want it to. And then so you get in this constant loop. And then when you're in that loop of constantly trying things and trying to figure out what's working, then yeah, it starts to take a toll on your psyche and your life. And you start to wonder, like, is what I'm doing valuable? Like, am I worthy? Am I doing enough? That kind of thing. It's accepting the reality that as a 3-5, you're here to move through the world through trial and error. It's not who you are, but it's how you experience the world, right? It's just learning that back and forth dance with life of the trial and error and using that to your advantage. It's giving yourself, like, having grace with yourself and patience. Again, I mentioned the patience piece. The last one is not my strong suit, with at least not with like myself and life, maybe with other people. And I think that's another thing too. It's just having grace with yourself and having patience with yourself. It's easy to have patience and grace with other people, but we are always our own harshest critics, and giving yourself that space and grace is kind of a big deal. So it really comes down to reclaiming your power and expanding your capacity to hold the whole trial and error loop that we're here to play into, and using that as this source of experience and wisdom and awareness, and then using that to propel yourself forward. And I think that's what's so cool about the profile lines. This is sometimes, I would say oftentimes, this is one of my favorite parts to talk about with my clients, because kind of like me, from my experience in explaining this to my clients, I find into similar situations when I was learning about my profile, where it's like, okay, I'm not really teaching you something you don't already know, but it's like you're recognizing it for the first time and you're like, oh, I get it now. It's coming to terms with, this is who I am, this is what I'm here to do. And then, it's a process. I'm not saying this is like an instantaneous thing. And it's a process of finding the power in that and recognizing that there's power in your profile. And the other thing I find is so funny with your profiles is it's cool to see like the interactions between other profiles, because like for me, when I was learning my human design, I was reading about how a 3-5, like me, can be triggered by a 2-4, and they can often butt heads. And it's funny because my husband is a 2-4, and I can't say that it's necessarily a trigger. Like, he doesn't trigger me, and we don't butt heads. I mean, we're married and we have a great relationship, but it's funny because I can totally see, and me helping him with his profile. This has been actually the past couple of months. I've been helping with him. He's stepping into this new job and this new position. And so I've been helping him and using his profile to help him. And I can totally see that, because this is a 3-5, and this shows up for me. Before I even knew this shows up for me as a 3-5, kind of innately, just like take the hard way to figure things out. Like, that's kind of what happens. Like, we just take the series of trial and error, and because that's what it takes for us to figure things out. But we're here to do the hard work. Like, we're being called to do the hard work to figure it out. It's just our soul's journey. That's just what we're here to do. And the shadow of like, well, I just want things to be easy. That's the 4. And the 2-4, that's the 2-4. It's the 2-4. The 2 line is the natural. Things just come naturally to them, and things get to be easy for them. And so that's why a lot of times you can butt heads with the 2-4, which on another note is why it's all so crucial for you to understand the human design of your partner, your spouse, and your kids. Like, I'm telling you, it'll change your relationship. Like, it will change your relationship 100%, setting that aside. It's interesting because the shadow does. And this is what I was explaining to my husband, because he's actually, when I was working through him with part of his profile, it was for him, he kept trying to make things hard. And I'm like, dude, like, you are literally going against everything you were designed to do, which is to have it be easy. Like, just own it. It's just so interesting to look at the interactions between the different profile types, and how they like shadow for one is like the strength of another. And it's just so fascinating. One other thing I want to bring into this part of the conversation about comparing. So with, like, for example, still going on the long lines of comparing my husband's and mine. So my husband's a 2-4. So the 4 is basically like, it's the networker, right? They're here to like bring people together and formulate relationships and use those for everybody's benefit. And so something about the 3-5 that's interesting, that the bonding strategy of the 3-5 is basically like making bonds and letting them break. Like, bonds made to be broken is basically what it's saying. And I never really understood this piece, uh, or I never really put the pieces together of like the series of bonds that were made and broken in my life until I put this together. And I, thinking back, I'm like, man, I had so many, at the time, good friends who, the bonds are made and then broken. And I look at my husband, I'm like, he's got so many different groups of friends and so many people he keeps in touch with from forever ago. And I've always had just kind of my small core group of friends. And I have, a couple of friends from childhood that I keep in touch with. And that's basically it. Like I've always just had a small group, but I've always been okay with it. Like I've never been one to be like, oh, I need a ton of friends, or like my husband, the networker who connects everybody and never meets a stranger. And I've just never been that way. And comparing the two, I'm like, oh, this makes total sense. And it really, I think having the perspective of how this kind of works within my human design profile is, we're here to create bonds and let them be broken, but not in a bad way where we're like destroying, relationships and stuff. But it's basically like relationships and bonds come in and out of our lives for a purpose. Like they come in, we fulfill the purpose, we teach them the thing we're here to teach them, and then they leave and they go and they're on their way, and that's it. And when I kind of had that perspective shift, it made, because sometimes I have to say, especially me and my husband, and we're so completely polar opposites about a lot of things. And, there's a lot of things we, our values and stuff we see eye to eye on, but there's a lot of things we're totally opposite. And he's a total extrovert and I'm a total introvert, right? And I have to say, there was a while where these insecurities would come up because he has so many groups of friends and he has so many, and I would think, okay, am I like completely antisocial? Like, do, but the thing is, like, I didn't really desire that. But the thought in my head was like, okay, well, maybe that's me. Like maybe there's something wrong with me where I'm doing things, the wrong way, where I should have that. Maybe I should, it was me questioning kind of me and how I am. And even though it wasn't something I really wanted, I thought, well, maybe I am being antisocial. Maybe I'm. And when I really understood this piece of my profile, I'm like, I mean, the pieces, just like everything else, just totally come together. Like, oh, that's why. Okay, this makes sense, right? I am not here to like basically keep the relationship going per se. Not to say I'm never supposed to have long-term friends, but I'm not really here to keep relationships going. Like the four line, that's what they're here to do, is kind of feed and fuel those relationships and bring more people together into like, that's what they're here to do as the networker. And my husband is so good at that. But it's not what I'm here to do, right? I'm here as a 3-5 to, my bonding strategy is making bonds, and then they're kind of made to be broken. And so I'm not here to have a whole bunch of friends. I'm here to have the core group that sees me for me in the way I was talking about before, like the depth of me and all of that. And then other than that, it's like, okay, we make bonds and I teach them when I need to teach them, and it's kind of this mutually beneficial relationship thing, and then we go our separate ways, and there's nothing wrong with that. I wanted to bring that in because I think for those who have a 5 in their profile, sometimes that can be like a conditioning piece, a deconditioning piece for us, where we're like, is there something wrong with me that I don't have a bazillion friends and I really don't want a bazillion friends? Like, right. And it can be this societal thing where people might see us as antisocial or it's not what, right. But it's not how we bond. It's not how we're meant to bond. And it's really what makes us so beautifully unique. And just another thing I love about human design is bringing all these pieces in and having this understanding, like, how cool is it that we all get to be so uniquely us, like so unapologetically uniquely us, and it all just fits together perfectly. And I just love everything about that. But here's the other thing though, that is just, I think it's just so divinely orchestrated, how God just arranges all these things and designs us so uniquely. Because as much as I can say, like, oh, I just want things to be easy, I don't want to do the trial and error. The fact is, as a 3-5, we like the process. We actually like the trial and error. If things were easy for us, we would get bored and we would probably just give up and not do anything and be useless to society. Because we are here, we are driven to solve problems for other people. We are driven to go through the process to figure it out. And that is a piece that I am really working on owning 100% and stepping into that and putting aside the fears of disappointment or messing up or quote unquote mistakes or whatever, and knowing that that's how I'm here to do things. It's how I'm here to live my life. And I think the other piece of this that has been, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when I talk about the gene keys in one of the episodes in this series, But for me, another shadow of the three line, because and really I do think it's related to that whole like fear of disappointment thing, is being superficial. And not superficial. And this is such a I find a lot of words in human design like aren't very helpful. And they're kind of misnomers, because superficial, well, it can mean a lot of different things. It's superficial, and kind of what I was using in that example earlier of when I was kind of just doing like the surface level nutrition coaching at first, right? For people who are coming to me with surface level problems, it's kind of what that superficial means. For the three line, it's being superficial and really just not going deep enough, and not really it's staying on the surface. It's playing it safe, right? It's playing it safe. It's staying on the surface and playing it safe and not going deep enough, and maybe being like avoidant or being non-committal. This like 100%, 1,000% affects your impact as a 3-5, as a three line, really any three line, even if you're not a 3-5, if you're a 3-6 or whatever, a 1-3, if you have a three line, it's totally halting your growth. It's limiting your impact, and it's causing resistance, right? And resistance is what leads to dis-ease in the body when we're not stepping into our full design, right? And so for me, I catch myself and and looking back, I'm like, oh Lord, I can see there's so many places where I was being avoidant, non-committal to things, and I'd get these ideas that I was responding to per my strategy in human design. And then I would avoid doing the thing, or just kind of like maybe halfway do them. And that was why this superficial piece, like really, really stands out in my business and even in my health. Again, I mean, I think about the years. It's funny. I was just having interviewed this gal on my podcast a few days ago. We were talking about this because she had the same thing. So remember the years, and this might resonate with you too. The years I spent working out and eating whatever I was eating, because you're just doing it to be skinny. That's it. It's very superficial reasons. You just want to be skinny. It wasn't about, you thought you were being healthy. You thought you were doing something good for yourself. But it's like, in reality, I was starving myself, and I was an avid over exerciser and was killing my body. So I see things, how this whole superficial thing showed up in my health and in my business and even my relationships. I mean, I think about, girl, this is going deep here, but thinking about when I was married the first time, and thinking about the person I was then versus the person I was now, and how it was all very superficial, and not like it was a fake relationship, that kind of thing. Superficial in the fact that I felt like I just needed to play a role, right? Like I was just I was just kind of following what, the culture that I grew up in the South, in the Bible Belt. You go to school, you get married, you follow the order, and you do the things, and you do it in the right order. And I was just doing that. I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm graduating college, so now it's time to get married, right? I was just doing the things, and I was playing the role of the wife, which really actually taking care of a man child. That's another conversation. But the fact is, it was from a very superficial place, right? It wasn't going to the depth of things. It was playing it safe, and it was doing what I quote thought I should be doing. And that shows up so much. And it was the fear of disappointment drives that superficiality, in my opinion. The fear of disappointment, the fear of, right? And so you can only avoid your true essence for so long, right? Until you just either it all implodes, or your health fails, or something kind of wakes you up. And so for me, it was divorce. And I think that was really probably the first stepping stone to stepping out of that kind of superficial piece that, I don't know, I feel like I embodied that for so long, and it's just changed everything. And then as the 5 line, that's as the 3 line, as the 5 line, it's, 5th line, you're here to be a mentor and show solutions, all of that. And it just plays so well with the 3, using all of these life experiences and all the, quote unquote mistakes, right? The divorce, the doing the things I quote should be doing, like all of those things. That's what leads me to really step into my 5 line and be the mentor and show solutions and have all this life experience and wisdom and all, so it all plays a part in how I am here to show up and provide value to the collective and how I'm contributing to. This is why I love the profile so much. Like I could go on and on about this for hours, but I don't want to make this a 2-hour long episode. If you can really dive into your profile and understand both the conscious side and the unconscious side of this, how you're here to show up, how you're here to contribute to the collective, how you are here, how other people see you, how you're here to like the potential, also the potential you're here to step into. Because I think that's the other piece is with the unconscious line. There's so much room for potentiality with that and stepping into that unconscious role and bring that really more to the forefront and not leave it as an unconscious part of yourself. And along with your authority and your strategy and your type that I talked about in the last episode, the profile piece is huge. I had a client actually. I sent her recording, her human design recording, and she's working one-on-one with me. And she messaged me back and she's like, I'm literally crying listening to this. Like, I feel like I feel seen. I feel seen. Like I see myself. That is the essence of this, y'all. Like it's you feel seen and you see yourself. And it's usually because you are seeing yourself. For some people, it's like seeing themselves for the first time, but it's a remembering, right? It's not like it is gone. It's a remembering, and it's huge. Like it's making me emotional thinking about it right now because of how many people that I've worked through this with, and it can literally change everything. I'm going to dive into a few more parts of my chart in the next couple episodes. I hope this is helpful though, and just seeing how I understand my profile and how I use my profile and the ways in which you can really apply it and use it as your superpower. I have a masterclass going on right now that you can jump into. If you just go, I'll leave a link in the show notes. But you can also go to my Instagram page. There's a link in my bio and I'll put it here too. But the program or the masterclass is really diving deeper into this. So I give you a little bit more, some more details about different parts of the chart, looking at like your own profile lines, and you have the ability to ask questions. I think that's even more importantly, you have the ability to ask questions about your own chart, but we'll dive deeper into the chart. But it's really integrating this into your wellness and into your business, and how to use these human design principles to integrate into your business strategies and your wellness practices, and how you're showing up and making decisions and navigating all of these things, creating more ease and flow and in all aspects of your life, which is leading into my program that's coming on the back end of that, which is going even deeper into all of this, plus tying in cycle syncing. And so it's really about tying in human design and cycle syncing into your body's natural rhythms, how to tie human design into that for really abundance and ease and flow in your life and your business and your relationships and your energy and your wellness and what that looks like. So we're going to dive really deep into, we're going deep into all the things in your chart, your personal chart. You're going to get one-on-one sessions, you get Q&A sessions to walk through all of this stuff. I'm putting together my training with hypnosis and gene keys and human design to really untangle things that are kind of leaving you feeling stuck or stagnant or confused, or kind of that, analysis paralysis thing where we kind of get stuck in that loop. And really the ultimate goal is ease and flow, right? And I think I keep saying that, but it's also for growth, right? Growth in your business, growth within yourself, growth in your relationships, really minimizing resistance, understanding your body's natural rhythms and cycles, and using that to your advantage, and knowing how to plan out your month in your business or in your career, whatever it is, to optimize energy so that you're not meeting resistance at every corner, and you're not burning yourself out every month, and you're not feeling, dreading Monday every week because you're just drained and you haven't been able to regenerate your energy over the weekend. And it's understanding how your decision-making process and how that can literally change everything in your business and in your life when you understand how you're meant to make decisions and really do that from an authentic place. And kind of just, it's this really harmonious integration of self-awareness and your body's natural rhythms and these personalized strategies. All of this comes together in this program, and you're going to understand yourself on a whole other level. And you can also use these principles to help people in your life, right? It can foster better relationships with your partner or your spouse or your coworkers or your business partners, right? The people you work with in your business, your kids. It hits every facet of your life. So I'm so excited about the program, and I will be sharing more details about how to jump in and really learn more. But I just want to explain what it's all about so you're aware of what's coming around the bend. I am so happy to share this with you and to share this part of my story with you. And thank you for listening and joining me. And I will see you in the next episode of this series. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.